Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Sorry, Emily,
You've got your...
you need to switch off the volume mixer.
Right, good morning, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all here. We have quite a few people who are joining us online tonight, which is going to add to the enjoyment, I think. But we also have Ramesh Meppa here, who is looking maybe to join us as a representative of the Hindu faith community. So hopefully we can welcome him and make this an enjoyable experience for Ramesh this evening. We were hoping to have some other guests, but they have unfortunately not been able to come tonight. Just one thing, we do have a lot on our agenda for this evening. So whereas we do want everyone to be able to make a contribution and to have their voice heard, please let's be mindful of the time as we move through the meeting. Lucianne, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Nick Barnett.
Okay, thank you. Right, the first item, we have some changes to the RE syllabus. We're going to just go through those amendments in our groups. So it's going to be done as the formal ASC process. So in our groups, we can discuss those. For those who have members of their groups online, I'm afraid they're going to have to dial in and try and talk to us as best they can.
I've just been online.
Yeah, we've got
Beth.
Beth on Group A is online. She is going to phone me. Phone me. Yep. So that'll be fine. I will come over and join Group A. Group B, Katie will be.
I've got Katie's number, so I can give that to Linda. I'm just asking Sarah for her number so she can call, so Sam can call her. Would it be helpful if I just explain a bit about why these have come about?
Yeah, go on.
Nigel. So obviously we didn't want to have another meeting where we needed to convene the ASC and talk about syllabus amendments. But what happened was, you will remember probably at our last meeting, we went through some amendments, and one of them related to a sentence about Hinduism. And we felt we couldn't make a decision because we didn't have a Hindu member in the meeting. So Shira took that away to ask for some advice. And in the process of looking at that one sentence, the Hindu members she was talking with realised actually there were quite a few other sentences and things they wanted to change. So almost all the amendments relate to Hinduism content, almost all non-statutory. I think it's only the first one that's in the statutory section, and that's an incredibly minor change that actually a Sikh member suggested. The others are all non-statutory and relate to Hinduism pretty much.
I don't think anything here is statutory.
Well, it's just that first one, Shira, that talks about section 3.5, upper key stage 2, and it's literally just moving the word dharma. So
That
it
was
reads slightly
statutory.
different. So that's 3.5 is
I didn't
part of the
realise that was
statutory.
Oh, right.
The Hindu members that have been working on this have submitted their suggested changes to the Hindu Education Board, who have checked them and I think maybe tweaked them. So they have been checked by that board. And yet they are all minor additions or slight changes of wording, slight changes of web links, etc. So they're all very minor, but obviously we need to get your approval. And I have made a decision that this is it now for the time being, because every time we want a change made, I have to email our designer for him to make the change, and his time costs money, which the Sacre is paying for. So we do need to have and it costs my time as well. Obviously, I don't charge the Sacre for my time, but it does take my time as well. So, and I think we've definitely got to the point where teachers need to have this. So obviously we can make changes in the future because it's going to be an online document rather than a printed document. So it's not saying we can't change it for the next 5 years or whatever. But for the time being, we need to get to a point where we say this is the final one for now for sharing with teachers. So
Just one comment. There was an item which was flagged to sort of deal with later, and then I got so busy helping Bracknell and other councils, acting as a nexus between all the Sacres. But the key stage 3, the beginning activities, I think it's way down, like almost in appendices. We flagged that because they're very, very poorly designed activities, and we do need to, at some point in the next few months, maybe get together with Ian to work on revising those activities, which I did flag originally, but there just wasn't time to do it before.
Okay, that has been noted, Shira. All right, so if we can break up into our groups as before, the groups will discuss this. They will come to a decision as each group, because there is some statutory input there, and then we will report back. We're just going to take it more or less one vote on the entire set of changes. All right, if any group has a particular objection to to any part of this, we will discuss that at that time. Okay? Okay, so I believe every group has deliberated. So can I just ask Group A whether they are in agreement with all these changes?
Yes.
Group B?
Yes.
Group C?
Yes.
And Group D?
Yes.
Wonderful. So we now have a syllabus agreed for the second time in this process. Right. Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll move on. Minutes of the...
Sorry, Nigel, could I just do that?
Yeah, you want to share the final formatted version?
So, thank you, Nigel. Yes, I thought members might be interested to see what the syllabus looks like as a result of our design team working on it, and I think it's looking really good. So obviously there's now a few, these minor changes we've accepted today need to be put in, but this is the front cover, and then obviously we've got a contents page which is hyperlinked, and then it's all colour coded. So if I just skip, so you've got the introductory bit, but then when it gets to the statutory content, these colours that you see for the different key stages are used throughout the whole document. So all the content that relates to EYFS, for example, is pink, etc. So you'll see that these are the EYFS questions. Then you've got the key stage 1 questions in this turquoisey colour. Lower key stage 2 is this lilac-y colour, etc. And the same colours are used when it comes to the non-statutory content. Again, you can see this is the guidance for EYFS, which is in this pink heading. And then, of course, you've got the suggested lesson plans towards the back here. And again, they're colour coordinated. And then right at the back, we've got the resources list. This is the assessment section, sorry, which again is colour coordinated, and then the resources. So it's looking really good, I think. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you. Luciane, I understand that as part of our recently adopted constitution, we need to go through the declarations of interest at each meeting. Could you explain a little bit about that?
That's the procedure that we adopt with all the other formal meetings. We do have a standing item, which is a declaration of interest. But we advise members of committees that it's only pecuniary interest that you have to declare. Basically, only if you have a monetary interest in one of the items.
Okay, so we're going to be doing that in the future at the beginning of each meeting, just as a reminder of people. So if anyone has a financial interest in anything that we are discussing tonight, then now is the time to say so. Okay, I take it that means no one does.
I don't have a financial interest, right? But I just want to clarify the previous point, Emily. The new syllabus which has been agreed now, when is going to be adopted? Can you just remind us, please? In schools, actually, when the schools adopt them.
Okay, yes. So schools have until January 2027 to get the syllabus implemented. Yeah.
So,
a year, yeah.
So minutes of the previous meeting.
I've just got a couple of very minor factual things to correct. So at the bottom of page 21, the last paragraph, it says, in response to a question, it was noted that academies are required to follow the national curriculum. That word are just needs changing to will be, because at the moment they don't have to follow the national curriculum, but they will have to when the new national curriculum comes in. And there was one other thing on page 22. Under how are things in Wokingham schools, it says, where is it? Okay, the first sentence. Schools were preparing for many changes, including the changes to the RE curriculum. Actually, what I was saying was there's changes to the curriculum as a whole. So we could take out RE because it's not only RE, it's that there are going to be many changes to the curriculum that schools are preparing for. Oh, and there was just a typo I noticed on page 20. In the middle of the page where it says resolved and there's number 1 and number 2. Number 2 says Shira Solomons will consult with Hindi representatives, so it should be Hindu.
Not Hindi.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Does anyone else have any clarifications or changes or issues at all with the notes of meeting from last time?
Chair, can I just make a suggestion? I noticed that people are using the chat function. That makes it difficult for anybody trying to follow the meeting on Teams or on YouTube. I suggest that if the members joining online, if they wish to speak, just to use the hand up facility and then actually say what you want to say.
Okay. So everyone's happy with the minutes? Shira, are you happy with the minutes?
To be honest, I haven't scrutinised them. I didn't feel I needed to.
Well, that's good. Right, so that moves on to matters arising. So I think one of the matters arising is the next steps for the hub. Ian, you've been looking at that.
Yeah, so we mentioned at the last meeting that we were that Katie and I were going to meet once we'd had decisions from the DFE about the future of the national curriculum in RE, to see as a hub going forward. We could put something together for all the schools across Berkshire in support of that one. I will be updating in item 5 recent developments around that. So the idea was that the Berkshire hub, Katie and I have spoken. We saw each other. Not the Saturday it's just gone, but the Saturday before that, we passed each other in a hotel in Solihull of all places, and we said hello. But the idea is we will wait until we've got firm decision from the DFE based on Vanessa Ogden's recommendations, and then to look at where we're going to go forward with the Berkshire hub after that date. And then she and I would meet and discuss with relevant Sacres how we can build forward and support the schools going forward with any change that may or may not be happening.
Any questions?
Being new to and at the first meeting, what is the Sacre hub in a nutshell?
It's where in the past each of the local authorities, Wokingham, Windsor, etc., had their own RE advisors, and they got together to develop materials and support teachers across all the local authorities within Berkshire. That's where some developments, and we do have on the agenda the task of Finnish group to review the process syllabus, how they would get together. Now there are 2 of us as RE advisors, so the aim is that we will come together to discuss how we can listen to what you want, and we can support what the Sacres want across the 5. So rather than acting as one Sacre, but actually bringing all the schools together, because the syllabuses are, even though they're not the same, there are some similarities. So the aim is therefore to develop and work with the Sacre members on what you want as a Sacre to help the support you want for your schools across the area.
Can I just ask a question? You said 5, so Slough is not involved? What did you say, 5 rather than 6?
I'm sorry, sure, I thought it was 5. I'm not sure. So
No, I think you may have misspoken. I think it is 6.
that's fine then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the old Berkshire County Council areas working together to get economies of scale.
And is Bill Moore no longer an RE advisor in Berkshire? So are you and Katie, you've taken all 6 between the two of you now?
Katie and I have spoken about supporting them, so we've not had any communications with Bill, so I don't know if Bill's there anymore. I would need to look into that one for you, sure. I'm not aware of that one. I saw David Rees on Saturday the other week, who used to be supporting, but I've not seen Bill. But I will contact Bill because I've been in contact with him and see what's happening. So Katie and I can sort that one out and then refer back to you at the next meeting. That's fine.
Just to say, Ian, I've been in touch with Bill as well, and Bill is, yes, he's the Slough advisor, Shira. He's also the current interim RE advisor for West Berks. So the three of us will get together. Thank you.
Okay, great. Emily, would you like to update us on membership of Sacre?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we reported that we had quite a few vacancies on the Sacre, a few in Group A, and then 2 in Group C, which is our teacher group. And myself and Lucianne have made quite good progress on filling vacancies. So in Group A, we were looking for 2 Christian members other than C of E, Hinduism, Sikhism and Buddhism. Obviously, we have Ramesh here this evening, who we're hoping will decide to join as our new Hindu representative. We talked about how it might be good to have a Roman Catholic member on Group A, and Philip took some action in relation to that, which was to contact the head teacher at St. Teresa's, and she was going to follow that up for us, so we're waiting to hear back on that.
Yeah, and Canon Simon there as well, the parish priest of Corpus Christi, and I've sent them emails and they responded saying they'll be in touch when Canon Simon was back from holiday, but I haven't heard anything back yet again. So after chasing a second time, I will endeavour to do it a third time and see what happens. Yeah.
Thanks, Philip. And also, Luciani has been in touch with various organisations. The Quakers responded to say they would ask around their members for a potential Group A Christian member. Buddhism and Sikhism, Luciani has contacted national organisations and local organisations, and I don't think we've had a response. Yeah. Group C is very positive. I've had 3 teachers express an interest in joining Group C, and we've actually only got 2 vacancies. So what we'll do if they all want to join, I'm not sure. But they are all planning to come, but none of them could come this evening, but they're all going to come to our June meeting. One of them, I've actually received a nomination from her head teacher already, so she's definitely wanting to join. The other 2 are going to come as observers and see. 2 of them are secondary and 1's primary. So, yeah.
If they don't, are we allowed to ask whether they have a faith background and ask if they can't get on as a teacher on Group C, whether there's a space for them in Group A? But I don't know whether we're allowed to talk about whether they can share kind of that detail as well, but it might be worth considering.
That's a good suggestion, I think, Philip. Yeah, if all 3 of them want to join. Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if there's anything to add, Luciani. Thank you.
Okay, the next item there is the task and finish group that is looking at the process we went through when we developed this latest syllabus. So Claire, Shira and myself met last week to start the process. So we've started by trying to map out a timeline of what's happened to the best of our knowledge based on what we know about what happened here in Wokingham. We're looking to explore what happened at the hub and also what happened at one other Sacre, so that we get a view of when they found out information and when information was communicated to them, so we can understand the flow of information and the way that that was handled throughout the process. Shira, Claire and myself, we were all involved in making the contribution from our own religious perspective. So Shira very involved in the Judaism, Claire in the humanism, and I was involved with the Christianity part of the syllabus development. So we're going to feed back our experiences into that and come up with the timeline and see how those discussions developed and look at what lessons we can learn through this, where it worked, where it was done well, and certain elements were done well, but also to look at where we can improve the process and if there's any learnings there. I understand, from what Ian has told us about the national situation with syllabus development, this might not be something that we have to look at again, but until these things become absolutely set in stone, there's always the possibility that idea that it becomes a national curriculum item. That may not happen. It doesn't happen until it happens. We may have to do this again. But in any case, it gives us an insight into how to make the hub function better for us and to how we can work better as a Sacre and with our RE advisor and with the coordination across different faith groups. So it will still be of relevance and use to our work going forward. Any questions on that?
I should just add that even if this national syllabus goes through, from what I can see, because I've been monitoring that quite closely myself, it's highly likely that, particularly because of the incredibly ambitious schedule, which we all know how bad ambitious schedules are with RE syllabuses, if they have any sense, it's going to be a very light touch syllabus and not involve a huge amount of detail. In which case, it won't be terribly surprising if the local authority still has guidance that it puts out that may be quite important, because I don't think that they're going to want to micromanage all the local authorities. I think what they're going to do is more sort of a much more soft touch.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. Time will tell on that one. Any other comments?
Yep.
Shahid.
In terms of the timeline, do we have any for the task of finish group when it's going to draw its conclusions and then they share with the Sacre members?
No, we don't at the moment. I think this is going to depend to a large extent on the availability of people to speak to us, and it will take us some time. I think we do want to make sure, like with everything, that this is done, yes, in a timely manner, but we want to make sure it's done right. Yeah, so I think maybe after we've had another couple of meetings, we'll have a much better idea of where we're moving with that. So when we come to report back at the next Sacre meeting, I think we will tell you when we intend to finish. Okay? But it's a good point. I don't think this can be an open-ended commitment to looking at this. Okay, so moving on. The letter regarding Sacre's concern about the withdrawal of funding for specialist RE teacher training. So at the last meeting, this came up, Ian's briefing. It was talking about the fact that, yes, there was a really strong possibility that RE would become a national curriculum subject, but he'd also noted at the same time that funding for specialist RE teacher training, the bursaries, were being removed. And we all know that there is a general shortage of RE teachers and qualified RE teachers, so we did feel that it didn't make a particular lot of sense. Shahid raised the point about could we write a letter. So what I'm really looking for is a volunteer to write a letter expressing Wokingham Sacre's feelings about the withdrawal of funding for specialist RE teacher training. So I want a volunteer to write that letter. Shahid, you obviously felt strongly about it.
Yes, I do remember. I did make that point quite passionately. Yes, I can draft it, begin with the draft, then obviously run it with Ian and other members to make sure that,
that'd be fantastic.
You can finalise it.
Fantastic.
When any timelines for that, or?
I'm thinking here that, well, Ian's going to talk about the timeline when we get to the national updates on education and RE, and I think that will give you an idea of when we really need to be confirming this. I would hope that we could have something drafted, say, mid-March from you, so that we can consider it, so that when the announcement is made about what's happening there, we will be able to put in a formal response almost immediately.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking what will be the most effective way of doing it? Writing as collectively or as individually or working with our Sacre members across Berkshire as well asking them to maybe, because obviously if there are six letters that are coming and they're all behalf of all the Sacres, that probably will have a more impact rather than just one letter from Wokingham Sacre.
I think that would be very good. If you could draft that, then we can send it round to the other Sacres and say, look, this is what we're doing. Do you want to do something similar? So that's a good suggestion, Shahid. We'll follow up on that.
If I can make a suggestion, how quickly could you get that letter together? Because there are several meetings happening this month at different Sacres, some of which I'm going to be at, other which friends of mine are going to be at. We could easily send it round through the network of sort of WhatsApp groups, etc., if there's a letter that's put together rather quickly.
I think, Shira, yeah, you know, it would be good to get this ready in a reasonable time frame, but I understand Shahid's a busy man. So, yeah, it would be good to get this done as quickly as possible, but if we have it available so that, you know, early April we could send the letter out, I think that would be a good time. Okay, so it's over to Alison.
Can we ask the Wokingham Borough Council leader, Councillor Conway, to also write in support of us and perhaps ask the two MPs for our borough to also support this?
Yeah.
Certainly recommend that, yes, I support that, yeah.
We will do that.
I think to make an impact, sorry, Chair, we need to use all the levers,
Open all the channels,
all the channels which
and I, you know, if on seeing this draft, other people want to send it under their own name, sort of subtly tweaked, that too would be a good thing. But I think it's important that it comes from us as a collective body, right? But I would not stop anyone. I would encourage everyone to submit a letter to the government.
To be honest, I mean, I don't know if I made a point. It does not make any sense at all. I mean, common sense is missing here, right? The example I would say is that if you're sending soldiers to fight, but don't give them any weapons to fight with, right? So you're asking them to teach, right? You become a mandatory subject, but you actually haven't got the trainers and the funding has been reduced. How can they teach a subject they have never been trained for, which is a mandatory subject? You know, it's just, yeah, I just think it's...
we all share, I think we all share your concerns in this respect.
I know Vanessa Ogden has voiced concerned about this. There are people, very influential people, who are very concerned about this.
Yeah. So we need to keep the pressure up. Okay. Thank you, Shahid. Let's move on. Ian, if you could address national updates.
Thank you, Nigel. Yeah. You've got, as addenda item 5, the update that I've sent through. I will update on the curriculum assessment review as well, because things are moving apace, even more than last time when I saw Philip and Sam at our meeting at your school, Philip. Things are moving apace. The task and finish group are working as we speak to get this ready for the end of March. So by the end of March, a recommendation will go in from Vanessa Ogden to the DFE as to whether the subject should be national curriculum or not, and she's working on consensus at the moment. So she is pulling together that and saying, yes, there will be a recommendation. In fact, Shahid, in light of what you've just been saying, she has committed, and she knows this one as well, she has committed that when that report goes in, she will also comment on professional learning for RE teachers and initial teacher training for RE teachers, because she's exceptionally concerned about the lack of teachers in that area. So if there is a consensus and the DFE agree, they will then work on changing the legislation for first teaching of a national curriculum from September 2028. And the idea is that it will then be in schools by Easter 2027 to give teachers 4 terms to prepare a new national curriculum. Now, that has already been agreed for all the other subjects in the national curriculum, so Samantha and Philip as primary school teachers will be well aware that by September 2028, all subjects will have a new national curriculum. It has been confirmed, as Emily said, and we made those changes, that from September 2028, academies will also have to follow the national curriculum. So there'll be no opt-out. They'll not be able to develop their own curricula. They will have to follow a national curriculum. Vanessa will send that report in to Bridget Phillipson at the end of March. And they are working now on a draft programme of study. If that's then accepted, the next stage will be to consult with the wider RE community beyond the religion and belief subgroup and the teacher subgroup that are meeting with Vanessa twice from January to the end of March. Therefore, it will go forward. Vanessa is having a lot of meetings at the moment to ensure that that's ready. It will then be looking at, after that one, as I say, changes to legislation to move RE from the basic curriculum into the national curriculum, and also to review any relevant legislation in terms of application to all schools and any other areas around it. She's also going to comment as well within this one, as I say, on CPD for teachers and the importance of CPD for RE teachers going forward. Stage 3 will then be looking at the role of Sacre, and she is going to be commenting to the DFE, and she made this clear on the 31st of January in a speech she gave. She'll be commenting on what she sees as the future of Sacres as a former Sacre member herself. She's very keen to do that one. And then after that one, there will be CPD provided for teachers about the new curriculum. So they've made, the DFE have made that recommendation. So by the time of our next meeting, if not earlier, and we were mentioning earlier that we would send something round as soon as we hear anything, that would be the case. What has already been seen is that schools, and this is on page 28, secondary schools can now include RE as part of their performance measure, not just in the open bucket, as we used to call it, but it's in the humanities. So geography, history and RE are now together recognised as an area that can be included in your Attainment 8 score. So that has been a change that's come forward. They're consulting now on the 4th group, which will include triple science. So there'll be 2 sciences, and then you can include the one or computer science, but that one will be looking to go forward as well. We have heard from the DFE recently, and I've put in there on the bottom of page 28 and page 29, the Supreme Court has made a ruling concerning collective worship in Northern Ireland and the right of withdrawal. In the light of this, the DFE have committed to put new guidance out on the right of withdrawal and collective worship, but there's no time frame for this one. And I find it really interesting, actually. The last guidance came out when I was doing my teacher training in 1994. So it's not been updated for 32 years, but they have now, in the light of the Supreme Court judgment about RE in Northern Ireland, really looking at collective worship and the right to withdrawal.
We received as heads in Church of England schools, we received guidance from Oxford Diocese a couple of weeks ago around this and recommended updates to our website around the removal from RE and collective worship and what that needs to look like. So there may not be official updated guidance, but there's definitely things being to filter through because of this now to schools.
I'm curious whether you know anything about whether they'll have any room to adjust the schedule for this, because the thing about consensus in a hurry is it very easily turns into coercion. We know what that was like in Berkshire. Has anyone raised that issue of the risks of a rush towards sort of a forced consensus where people feel they have to agree, or we are, creating imaginary cliffs? I'm really quite concerned.
I think when the dates of Easter 2027 and September 28 came out, it was a meeting between the subject associations and the DFE. They just sort of said this is when the national curriculum's coming out. They made no reference to any subjects in particular. The only comment they made about RE was changes to the GCSE and A level, which will be, as we said, looking around 2029, 2030. But it was just but I think because RE is in a special place, it might be that they will have to look at that one, Shira, but that will be for the Task and Finish group to report on to the DFE. I think they want to get it through But the aim is, as you say, it's ensuring they have that consensus about what's going to go out there, because if you are, as you say, if they're going to go out to consultation, it will take some time to do so, because there'll be so many different groups, which is what the religion and belief support group and the teacher support group are doing. When this meeting with the DFE was held, they didn't sort of single RE out, other than the fact of talking about RE discussions around Vanessa. They didn't say anything, just kept referring to the national curriculum. So it's the assumption is that it will be, the only commitment we got from them, or was said at all, was they will give 4 terms in order for schools to implement it, because they wanted to make sure schools could implement it properly. But they just were talking about all subjects, and they really didn't mention RE separately. So whether there will be any change or not, that will come through in Bridget's report at the end of March. She has committed that it will have to be done by the end of March. So I do know that the religion and belief group, reference group, which is led by Sarah Lane Court, they have another meeting with Vanessa coming up at the end of the month, as does the teacher group, and then after that one she'll be writing the report to go to Bridget Phillipson. So she may recommend something different given the complexities of going from a basic curriculum subject to a national curriculum subject, but we've not heard that. This was just comment from the DFE in a meeting they had about when they wanted to see the new curriculum in place.
I'm just quite concerned because we've only just managed to get a Jewish RE subject expert onto the religion and belief reference group. Just now, she hasn't even attended the first meeting. And so the idea that they're going to make final decisions is very worrying.
The religion and belief reference group, as I say, what they're saying has gone forward to the task and finish group. So I think, you know, there is another meeting to come of that group, which obviously new members will be attending at the end of the month to ensure around that one. So also within the report, you've got the NATRE secondary survey published, which goes as well with what she was talking about in terms of teacher recruitment, in terms of the fact that actually, if you look at that one, you know, 82% of schools have teachers with other specialisms delivering RE at some point in the curriculum around the country. And I was saying to Nigel earlier, it's very interesting that Times Educational Supplement at the moment does actually have in adverts for jobs to start in September for RE teachers. So they're going early to get the small number of trainees that there are out there. And then this year there'll be a primary survey, so it alternates yearly as well. We've got there as well the compliance issue. 91% of schools are compliant at Key Stage 3, providing RE for every pupil. It's very interesting that on page 19 of the toolkit from Ofsted, it says that schools must ensure they have a statutory curriculum which includes RE. So that's now actually within the Ofsted toolkit for secondary school, well, that was the secondary school ones, and 61% of schools are still compliant at Key Stage 4. So we do have the idea that schools are still not providing the basic entitlement for all pupils subject to a right of withdrawal to be given RE lessons, and it might be due to timetabling issues, but that could be it. And as I say there, 47% of teachers have had no RE CPD at all in the past 12 months, which is not like Wokingham because we have a secondary school day on the 27th of February coming up. So that will be that one. Local reorganisation does not affect the Sacre here, but it does a lot of other ones. Similar there, we've got the Ramadan guidance, Ramadan beginning next week. The month we have there from the Board of Deputies, Jewish Culture Month. It's been put in there. There's also Sacre training within there as well. And there are sessions where people may wish to go along to those as well. It really is at the moment keeping an ear out of what's going on everywhere. So, for example, as I say, they're looking at timelines, as Shira mentioned earlier, looking at GCSE specification changes if they need to change A-level ones, because if we have a new national curriculum, then the RE, GCSE and A-level will need to fit in with a new national curriculum. So there is a lot going on at the moment. I know Vanessa is working and meeting with a lot of people because she wants to get the breadth of understanding for RE across the RE community and the RE world. And as I say, she was at the Strictly RE conference on the 31st of January, and on the NATRE website is her copy of a presentation if you want to look at it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's recorded, but the slides are definitely up there, Shira, yeah. So they are up there because they are public knowledge because it was a public conference. So if you want to read them, they are there. Hopefully that's okay.
Okay. And just to note, not only does Ramadan start on the 18th, but so does Lent.
Nigel, could I just flag up, in relation to the national updates, you'll see that one of Ian's updates at the top of page 30 is about the Sacre conference, which Luciani did email members about recently, because what we normally like to do is have our RE advisor go together with one of our Sacre members. I know Shira went last year, and the year before it was Julie Easton, I think. So if there is a volunteer who would like to go to that, we cover the cost of the ticket and the travel, but obviously you do need to be able to go on the 18th of May to Liverpool. So yeah, I guess if you needed accommodation, then we could look at covering the cost of that if necessary.
Okay.
So let us know if you'd like to volunteer. And just to say, Vanessa Ogden is a keynote speaker at that conference. But we did also send round, Lucianne sent recently, an invitation to join an online keynote from Vanessa Ogden on the 2nd of March, which is, she's speaking at a conference, I think, in the Southwest, but others can join online. And the Zoom link was included in that email. So you might want to join. We can send the email out again if you didn't note it, Shira. Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, I believe you have a comment.
Yeah, I was also just wondering, one of the things that certainly in secondary schools is one issue, is that as a non-specialist teacher, that with teachers' directed time, the one thing that the head teacher cannot do is to direct somebody to teach RE. It's the one subject they can refuse for moral and religious grounds. And I wondered if the government is looking to change that at all, because that might have an impact on who delivers, willingly or otherwise, the RE teaching. I wondered if that was mentioned at all.
So it's not been mentioned yet. I do know that in Wales they did withdraw, well, they have removed the right of withdrawal completely, but it's not been mentioned yet in any of the discussions I've heard from Vanessa's group or from the DFE to change that at the moment. But that will be one thing I'm sure she will comment on, because it will impact therefore on in England teachers' paying conditions, because that is part of their understanding of their role. So we'll just wait and see. But I do know that in the new RVE curriculum, Religion and Values Education in Wales, the right of withdrawal has been removed. Now, we will wait and see if the Supreme Court ruling may alter that one. So we'll just wait and see. But I do know that, as I say, at the moment, it's not been discussed that I know of.
I think it's something we all need to keep an eye on, because that is very important, because it will affect how potentially schools do or don't deliver the RE, and who does deliver it and in what way.
Yep, thank you for raising that, Sarah. Okay, any other questions for Ian? Oh, thank you, Ian. All right, so we were going to look at how things are in Wokingham schools, but we're going to move that somewhat down the agenda and move on to the development plan and budget. So that's pages 37 to 42 in the pack.
Thanks, Nigel. So yes, just to give a few updates on where we are with our development plan, if everyone's got it in front of them. So obviously our core business is filling membership vacancies, which I've mentioned already. Sacre members attending meetings. I think our attendance is really quite good at the moment, so that's excellent. Number 3 is Sacre member attendance at teacher network meetings and training events. So hopefully you are always aware of when we're doing training with teachers and network meetings. Claire came to the recent afternoon that we had for primary school teachers to support them to implement the syllabus, which took place at Phillips School, and Sam was there as well as a teacher and a Sacre member, and that was a really successful afternoon. I think Ian did some input, and then most of the afternoon was teachers just having time to talk to each other and ask Ian questions, ask me questions. Sam talked about how she's gone about implementing the syllabus at her school, which I think people found really helpful. Claire shared a few web links that people might find helpful if they're planning some humanism content. And yeah, I think it was very positively received. The next thing we've got coming up for teachers is on the 27th of February. Ian is leading a whole day of training for secondary school teachers. So it's a Friday, the 27th. And that's at Dinton Activity Centre. And it's going to look at everything that's currently happening in the world of RE and helping secondary teachers to respond to that. Claire's already said she's going to come, I think, for part of the day, Claire. But all Sacre members are welcome. If you can let us, in fact, I've got to confirm the numbers for refreshments by the end of this week. So if you would like to come, if you can let me know by the end of this week, or Luciani, she can pass the message on to me. Yeah, so that's that. Our annual Sacre report, we've got the formatted version of our report for the previous academic year that I'll show you under the item coming up. Number 6 is representation at Sacre conference, which we've just been talking about. And then section B of our action plan is about the support we provide to teachers, which I've just actually been talking about. The event that we've got coming up also later this term that I haven't yet mentioned is on the 18th of March is our primary schools network meeting, and that's happening via Zoom. So again, if any of you would like to come to that, that happens from 4 till 5:30 on the 18th of March, and that's led by one of Ian's colleagues who's a primary specialist. And then section C obviously has not been active this academic year because that's all about our involvement in the Pan-Berkshire Hub, which hasn't been active this year. So what I would say is that our action plans are based on the financial year, because obviously there's funding attached to our activities. So at the beginning of April, we should be starting a new action plan for the coming year. So if anyone has any suggestions, I mean, our action plan tends to look pretty similar every year, but if there's anything you would like to see in our new action plan that might be a bit different to what's been there for this year, then do let me know about any suggestions.
And it would be good if we could do that in plenty of time. So I think the date we're thinking of is the 13th of March for contributions to that, just to focus everyone's mind.
Just a question, the budget, have we spent all our money?
So, budget update, I was coming on to, Shira. So, you've got a budget update in the agenda pack. I'm not sure. Thank you, Luciani. There is a bit of an update to this. So you can see when I put this together for the agenda pack, I said that our total spending to the end of January was 3,480. But I had to do this before the very end of January. And at the end of January, I got a budget update telling me we'd actually spent quite a bit more than I thought, because the bill had come through from our design team for all their work on our 2 recent annual reports and on the syllabus. And the charge for that was £1,321. So you can add that on to the total, which I make our actual spends stand at the moment at 4,513. And you can see I've listed there quite a few things that we know we are going to be invoiced for. So all the training that Ian and his colleagues are delivering, for example, the costs related to this meeting today, a little bit more syllabus design work to come. And actually, I forgot to include the costs of going to the Sacre conference. So we've got the tickets and the travel for that. So I think by my estimations, we've got about another £3,200 worth of spending that will be coming out before the end of the financial year. So I think the short answer to your question, Shira, is that by the end of the financial year, we will have spent our budget.
I'm not sure that's right.
Well,
When
I
is the
need to
financial year?
clarify
When
end
is-
of March.
Right. The reason I'm asking is something to keep in mind as possible that might be worth spending money on in future is one of the issues, particularly if a national curriculum comes in, the most important role of Sacre is going to end up being doing that monitoring role in schools. Now, it's very, very difficult to monitor what schools are doing because we can't see what they're doing, because most of the resources that they're using are behind paywalls. And if the Sacre could make arrangements with the local authority schools so that the materials that they are buying are made available to view by Sacre members, particularly if it's about your faith. And frankly, I want to see what Judaism resources they're using in schools to know whether that they're fit for purpose. Because some are very good, and some are really lousy. And being unable to see them makes it very concerning for me.
I think that's the sort of thing we could raise at a network meeting, would probably be or a survey perhaps, but I don't think we'd need to think of a way of gathering that information from schools. It's not the sort of thing we could demand that schools tell us. Or
Discovery RE, which has been bought now by Jigsaw, is one. Natre is the other. They're the big ones. That's majority of the stuff. I mean, just to be able to view Discovery RE, I asked them, and they're saying like, no, we can't do that. It's just to be able to access Discovery RE's resources so that their Sacre members can see them, so that then we can.
So it could be that teacher members on the Sacre who've got access to materials could share those. Shira, that would be the easiest way of.
Is that possible to do?
I'd have to find licensing around that in terms of it's under our paid through our and linked to our email addresses, etc.
Right.
And through you pay. Your licenses are linked to the number of children you have in your school, etc. So I don't know what they've all clearly stated you're not allowed to share unless you're a paid member.
Right.
But there's an issue of monitoring. I mean,
what role does Sacre
it's
play
a
with the
real
monitoring,
problem.
though, in terms of, surely it's down to each school to develop their own curriculum. It's not down to Sacre to monitor what schools are doing in their teaching in their curriculum.
No, I think our role is to recommend what we
Yeah.
feel are high quality resources, but I think that's probably
which is
where
difficult
our
for us to do when we can't see.
So,
materials.
these companies are always wanting business. So, is it a case of inviting them to Sacre to share? So, you've got, you write Discovery, you've got Kapow, you've got a whole range of different curriculums out there. So, is it a case of inviting them to meet with the Sacre, because they'll have their sales team, they'll want to sell and they'll want to be recommended. So maybe that's the way to do it. Because I wouldn't feel comfortable creating an account of someone not within my school setting, because that could go against any kind of data protection stuff. But these reps will want to sell a product, so that might be a case of inviting them to meet at a Sacre meeting and talk about what their product is. So
Can I also bring up the fact that, that also if there's going to be a new RE curriculum, national curriculum, you'll have all new resources produced by publishers, etc. That's the first thing they do, to get on the bandwagon to produce a whole load of resources. So expecting to see stuff already when it's not been produced yet because the DFE hasn't produced it yet, you'll jump in ahead of the game, so to speak.
It's a good idea, though, Shira, and Philip, that we could put in our action plan, perhaps for next year, to invite representatives to talk about their resources at Sacre meetings.
Right. Beth, would you like to make a comment? You're on mute at the moment.
The wrong button. I just wondered how many local authority schools we had left. I think almost all our schools are now not within the control of the local authority.
We have about 18, 20 schools that are not academies at the moment, but some of those have plans to become academies. So,
yeah. I mean, I think we're being forced down that road anyway, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
I Thank you.
Ian had his
Ian.
hand up.
In terms of what Philip said, none of the organisations will let you have access to their resources unless you have a school email address. And I have tried to use my old school email address when I was deputy head, but because I can't access it anymore, I can't verify who I am, so they won't let you have access to it. And they are very clear around the fact that unless you are a school, you know, they will probably come and talk to you. And I know that, for example, Oak's slightly different because they're government funded. They have spoken to Sacre about the Oak resources. However, I do know, for example, that Discovery, Kapow, Jigsaw have put them behind, and you have to be within a school to have access to them. I mean, one of the things that, and it is that the Act relating to Sacre say we are responsible to monitor the standards of RE in school. That's what it actually says. So it's around, say, the curriculum that we would monitor through Ofsted reports. We have a CSI report through SIAMS, those things as well. So it is around those areas, but they will not. I've asked many times, can I have access to where I'm a local authority advisor to do that? So.
Shahid, you wanted to comment?
Yes. You know, I understand the constraints, obviously, but I think going back to the point Bashira made, I think is a very important point, that we spent so much time putting this syllabus together with all the consultation and the cost associated with that. But we don't see how it's being implemented. We don't have an oversight. No oversight. We can recommend, I understand, this is what our role is, but somehow we need to get that feedback loop as well. And that could be a learning for us for the next review of the syllabus as well.
Yeah, it could
But without that, we actually are working in total isolation. Hear me out. Total isolation, being, you know, next time we will be no wiser than this time because we haven't had that feedback loop.
And you're right, and it would be good to be able to see this stuff, but actually there's a real gap between the materials as written down and the materials as they are delivered in schools. And actually, I think it's more useful for us to go into schools and see it being delivered. And that, I think, is something that we can do and see how that is delivered. And that is on our development plan at the moment. And I think this is something that we probably ought to monitor a little bit more to see that we are going into schools, we are seeing stuff delivered, and that we're getting the right spread of people looking at it. Shira.
I just should say that I did have a meeting myself with Vanessa Ogden, and I raised this issue with her, whether that could be possibly legislated for when they change the national curriculum. And I don't know whether anyone else has raised this, but I just think this should be flagged. It may be that a change in the law is needed. There's been similar issues with RSC, you know, where stuff is put behind paywalls and then you do not know what your children are being taught. And it could be good and it could be really bad. To me, I mean, as a member of a very small minority group where primarily you have resources being made by people who do not know anything about Jews, who could be saying who knows what rubbish about us, it is very, very disturbing. And I don't know how this could be elevated, flagged, that it is an important issue.
Yeah. Well, you're doing your best if you've been speaking to Vanessa about it, so that's good to hear. But I still think there's a role for us as individual Sacre members to be going into schools and seeing the delivery of this education.
I think many schools are really keen to actually show off what they're doing. I often get, you know, if I'm at a conference or something, I'll talk to several teachers who say, well, why don't you come visit my school and see what we're doing? And teachers generally love showing you around their school, or head teachers. Yeah. And we have got it currently on our action plan. And I think it used to happen before the pandemic, but we've got out of the habit of doing it since the pandemic. So,
Stephen. Sorry. Stephen online is going to.
Thank you, Chair. I think that we do need to be more active in terms of going into schools. I think that's a very valid point. When I was a governor of a primary school, it was a key role of the governing body to go in and see lessons being delivered. And I think we should be more active in that area, and I'm guilty of that as well. So I'll put myself forward to try and do some of that. I think other things that we can use as ways of monitoring this is the exam results, because if a school is doing very poorly in the exam results, then you can assume, as with any other subject, that maybe they're not delivering it quite as well as they could. There's some questions that could be asked. I think we also do need to rely upon teachers' professionalism and the heads' professionalism, because they're trusted to teach all of the other subjects. And I think there has to be an element of professional respect to the teachers delivering in this subject as well. And I can understand why suppliers want to protect their interests in terms of, because they've spent a lot of money to develop these products, and obviously they've got to recover that through sales. So, but having somebody come along from the key ones so that we can have a presentation on it during the course of the next year, or we do it as an extra curriculum thing, I'm very comfortable with that as well. But thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Ramesh.
So I just wanted to get some context around this issue on, is there no body that polices the content that's being taught in school? I know from the Hindu education...
Yeah, Ian, if Ian could...
Yeah, and it goes back to a comment Philip made that the Sacre is responsible for developing the framework, but a school has its own responsibility for the curriculum. And I go back, and I know you should never go back really, but Nick Gibb, many years ago, actually said the most important thing an SLT ever does is develop a curriculum for their children. So, and that's one of the reasons, and what used to happen when we used to have inspections, which is why Symes and CSI are still there, the Catholic Schools Inspectorate are still there, is that when you had a full inspection, you would get an RE comment. That's how I got my first job as head of department, because the school had failed its RE, so I got parachuted in to change it. Once the inspections were made short, there was not always a comment on RE. So in fact, up to that point, Sacres were really fully aware of what schools were doing, because the curriculum is their own, and and the curriculum assessment review said you should reflect the nature of the children in front of you. So the curriculum responsibility of the school, we provide, or the Sacre and the ASC provide a framework for schools to use to adapt to meet the needs of their children, but there is no overarching body that will look at what happens. One of the things with RE, because we are a locally determined subject, is jigsaws, etc., when they're developing for other subject areas, have a national curriculum to follow. What schools have to do in terms of a local agreed syllabus is adapt what they buy in for their schools, and that's one thing we really do as RE professionals say, please adapt it, don't just deliver what you're given, you must adapt it to the needs of your local area. Some schools do, some schools don't, but I think it is one of those things that it is, that's what it says, I was curriculum lead in my own school, I was responsible for our curriculum with my middle leaders, and therefore it was our responsibility that we had a curriculum that met the needs of those children in Manchester where I taught. It will be different elsewhere, so curricula are schools' responsibilities, and that still remains with the school, and that's why within the curriculum judgment of the new Ofsted framework, I have it inspected as a SIAMS inspector when I'm looking at RE and SIAMS. The idea is we are looking at, does the curriculum meet the requirements of the legislation? Does it meet the needs of the children? So that's what really happens there. Where you don't have an RE inspector doing an Ofsted inspection, they would rarely do that one. And Emily and I will talk about that one when we get to the Ofsted inspections, but that's very much a hit and miss affair of who's going in and depending on what they're looking for. But I do think, Ofsted now are ensuring there is a statutory curriculum, and obviously with the funding agreements for Catholic schools and for Anglican schools and other faith schools, they will have to teach RE for a certain amount of time, but it is the responsibility of the school. And as I say, the guidance, the Education Act that talks about Sacre says we monitor the standards of RE, and that's where, when I go back to what was said around GCSE results, if we do get any Ofsted inspection reports that mention RE, that's why they are brought to the Sacre, but the curriculum is left to responsibility of the school. So Philip will have, an RE lead in his school, Sam will look at RE in her school, which is what you shared on that day, and when we meet on the 27th, there will be different RE curricula with the middle leaders we work with on that day.
Beth, if you'd like to comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And this is my thinking as a chairman of governors of a primary school, that I would not be happy about an outsider coming in to judge a professional teacher who was teaching from a syllabus that we've provided that's been approved by us. In fact, a lot of schools, especially the schools I know here in Woodley, don't teach RE. They buy that in from RE Inspired because they, although not necessarily trained teachers, are RE specialists in their own right. And I don't know if Linda's there tonight. I haven't.
She is.
I think I've seen her on there. And so Linda will speak for that as she's the expert in that area. But I have to say, I wouldn't want some random member of the Sacre coming into my school, judging what was going on in my school, if they're not a professional teacher, and although some of us may be, some of us are not. And I think you'll see the standard of RE going in one of the Woodley schools as the next inspection report comes up from St Dom's.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank
comments,
you.
Beth. Philip?
I can make another point about something else to do with this, but I don't know if people wanted to respond to that one, whether it's easier to, whether Emily, you needed to.
Yeah, shall I just quickly respond to Beth? I think you raise a good point, Beth, that if Sacre members are visiting schools, we have to be very clear about in what capacity they are visiting, and it would be in the spirit of a visitor, a guest, interested to see what the school is doing, but definitely not about judging, and we would have to be very clear about that. Yeah.
And I think I can't speak for all heads and all schools, of course. All I can see is kind of from our own practice and what I see in my trust and at schools I've worked at. But any head teacher for any subject will develop and empower and support teachers around subject knowledge. And I think most people will be in this profession because it's the passion and love that they have. They're not going to get everything right 100% of the time because they are human, but the teachers I've worked with over 18 years of my career is that they have a vested interest to do the very best for their children. So therefore, particularly subjects like RE, where it is a very confidence-driven subject, what you don't know. So therefore, people will spend the time to look at subject knowledge and to find out what they need to be able to teach, because there is almost a slight element around not wanting to do the wrong thing because they know how it might upset or insult or anything like that. So I think, unlike, say, maths, for example, I think RE, there'll be an extra element of care. And as I said, I can't speak for everyone, and not everyone will, because that's just human nature. But from what I've experienced is that people do take care in what they are offering and how they go about offering it to children, because they want the best for them, and also understanding that they want to do right by the different faith groups or whatever it is that they are teaching within those subjects.
Thank you, Philip. Shahid, did you want to make a contribution still?
Yeah, I do. I think just going back to the point which Stephen mentioned and Beth mentioned as well, and I think it joins up with Philip what you said. I think, of course, we should trust the professional judgment of the teachers. I think there's no question about that. The concern I have, if there are RE specialist teachers, that's fine. They're actually been trained for that role. There is no question on that. But the question does arise on the quality of the delivery when they haven't been trained as a RE specialist teacher. It's just like asking an English specialist teacher to start teaching maths, right? How does that quality is going to work, right?
Yes, you wouldn't get any specialist in primary sector. You wouldn't get any specialisms. So I did 4-year degree in primary education. So,
but I'm talking about with secondary schools.
Yes,
as well.
secondary schools. That's a different area that I wouldn't be able to have an opinion or say about. But in the primary sector, and that's why we use these resources like Discovery or Kapow, because what sits behind them should be a real depth of that subject knowledge for teachers. And I get this is probably the point that you're making, is that how do we know what they are putting in there? It's good enough.
Can I finish what I have to say?
Right, so...
Can I finish what I have to say first?
Shahid, then I will say something.
I think my concern was more in the secondary than the primary, because that's where the children are growing, they're forming their own opinions and views as well. That's where actually my concern is, right? So if there's a non-specialist RE teacher teaching a subject which they haven't had the backing, right? I mean, what they're teaching, the quality, etc., I take Philip's point that they will go an extra mile, just make sure they don't do the wrong thing, right? But nevertheless, it's very, it just still raised a question about the quality of the delivery. So that is where, so it's not to say that you don't trust the professional judgment of the teachers. I don't think I'm doubting that at all. But it does, I mean, you see where I'm coming from, right? The quality of the delivery. Any subject, you know, it could be maths or English, non-specialist subjects, you know, start teaching that. Of course, they're not going to perform to the standard. That's quite natural. But why RE should be so different?
Yeah, and I think why I would like to encourage everyone to go into school is to see what is happening there and to assure themselves that what is going on there is actually good. And I think that they will find a commitment there from teachers to deliver this well. And as Stephen's point is, when you're talking about the secondary education, there, you know, the exam results do give you a guide as to how good the teaching is. And I think, as we're going to see in our reports, our exam results are actually very good. And I don't think there is a great problem there, but I think it will be useful for people to go in and just assure themselves and can see what's going on there. Shira.
I wasn't talking about teachers at all. Okay. This is not something to do with, the teachers can only do the best they can with the materials that they're given.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, unfortunately, just because somebody isn't even an RE specialist or even an RE advisor doesn't mean that they know diddly squat about Judaism. And a lot of the problem that we have, and that I've been quite active working on recently, you have no idea how much, is that very often the training that teachers are getting about a religion like Judaism isn't even coming from someone who's Jewish. And so you've got resources written by people who have no lived experience as Jews, based on ideas they have about Judaism that they got from people that aren't Jewish. And they're writing resources about Judaism, teach about Judaism, and somewhere along the line you would hope that somebody who's actually an RE subject expert who is Jewish, such as myself or my husband or the other people that I work with, might actually be consulted with. But that's the issue, and that's why it's so important to me that we get access to view the stuff that's being used, because the teachers, no matter how good they are as teachers, or how professional they are as teachers, if they're presented with materials that aren't accurate, they can't. No matter how good they are as teachers, they're going to fail without any chance.
Okay, thanks, Shira. Samantha.
Didn't we put? I thought we put all of the kind of resources and the extra things that we would recommend in the syllabus. And as teachers, my experience has been, yeah, you get the schemes. I haven't been in a school rich enough to have a scheme at one point. And so I've used lots of the different resources now each day or whatever. But whenever you're at any of those network meetings, you put a link there or you tell people, like, this resource is really good, and everybody feverishly writes it down and spreads the word. So I think the question started with what resources are people using, which is really good to capture, but then maybe to draw people to, because that a syllabus is quite long, isn't it, when you're flicking through that bit, to draw them to the resources and say, you know, this is available, these are the resources, and if you would like any extra information from us, that's when you recommend, I'm happy to talk to you about these resources, you know, because it's absolutely great to have them from the faith groups, and people are very willing, as you exactly said, there is that element of fear of getting things wrong, which possibly is why less people step up to do RE sometimes, if I'm absolutely honest. That worry about getting it wrong, but then the idea of being judged and having it wrong just is a double-edged fear. So anything that comes from a faith group is really highly regarded, so maybe we just need to signpost that.
Can I have a question?
No, Shira,
I have a question.
Shira, Sarah's had her hand up. Sarah.
Okay, I'm a secondary teacher, I admit it. Okay, I'm a head of department. I don't actually have a set of textbooks. So if you ask to see the textbooks, you won't see them, because just as Samantha said, what you do is you go to all the websites, all the useful links from the various faith communities, and you create your own resources that support your students. Schools have been incredibly stretched with their budgets, having to pay for different things. And so the teachers create the resources, they go out looking for links with regard to faith communities, all of that. And I can tell you, you know, I'm going to speak a bit later. I had Ofsted in, okay, just after Christmas, and they saw me teaching a lesson where not a single student had a textbook. So if you ask to see the resources, as in the books, there are no books. You'd have to see my teaching resources. So when you go beyond primary school, we're talking about a completely different set of resources for the majority of schools. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Thank you, Sarah. Emily.
Just to respond to Shahid really and repeat something I mentioned earlier in terms of the quality of teaching, I think the important thing we can do as a Sacre is to support schools rather than necessarily just monitor, because the important thing is whatever's going on in schools, how can we support them to improve? And I just remind Sacre members about all the training and network meetings that this Sacre provides for teachers through Ian and his colleagues that we offer free of charge, funded by the Sacre. And I think a lot of the things we've been talking about here today, which I think has been a really interesting discussion, if members came along to the training and the network meetings, you would hear the discussion that happens amongst teachers and the training that they get, and it would allay a lot of your worries and answer a lot of your questions. So I really would urge members to come along to network meetings and training if you can, because I think if you're not someone that's been a teacher, you would find it really enlightening and interesting to come along to those sessions.
Can you share the details?
Yeah, well, I'll ask Luciani when she shares the minutes to send out the dates of what's coming up.
Okay. So I think that's a good point to move on to the feedback from teacher networks and training opportunities.
Well, I actually think that's already been covered. Yeah, I think the only thing that's happened since our last meeting is the afternoon for primary teachers that was held at Phillips School that I've already mentioned. I've mentioned what's coming up, which is the 27th of February day that Ian's leading for secondary teachers, and the 18th of March online network meeting at 4 o'clock for primary teachers. So I think that's probably all I need to say under that item.
Okay, brilliant. Wokingham Schools Ofsted inspections update.
So, yeah, myself and Ian could update on this. So the situation with Ofsted inspections this year is that we have a new Ofsted inspection framework. So no Ofsted inspections took place at the beginning of this academic year because we were waiting for that new inspection framework to be published. So inspections started properly in December, and so we've only had 2 Wokingham schools that have been inspected this academic year, which is Early St Peter's Primary School and the Forest Secondary School. The Early St Peter's report has been published, and it's really good. It's really interesting reading. It doesn't mention RE explicitly, but it does say things like children learn about life in modern Britain and welcome everyone regardless of where they come from. And the school's values of respect, honesty, kindness, forgiveness and service are lived out in everyday school life. And it is a really positive report. The report for the Forest hasn't been published yet, but as it's Sarah's school, she said she is going to give us a little bit of insight into that. I have put into your packs extracts from a report on St Dominic Savio Catholic Primary School, which is not an Ofsted report, but it's a Catholic schools inspectorate report. And I included it because it's such a glowing report in terms of their teaching of RE and their provision of collective worship that I thought Sacre members might find it interesting to read. The other thing, just before Sarah says something, is at the last meeting we talked about how in the last academic year one of our secondary schools was inspected by Ofsted, and the report said that they weren't fulfilling their statutory duties in relation to RE. So I was going to follow that up by contacting the school. As it turns out, my colleague, my manager, is actually meeting with the head teacher from the school this week, and he's new in post this term. So she is going to have a discussion with him. I've briefed her on, could she ask for an update on where the school is in developing its RE provision, and also to make sure the school knows about Ian's training that's coming up for secondary teachers, which they haven't yet booked to attend and which they probably find useful. So I can update on at the next meeting at the feedback from that discussion. But Sarah has sent me a document that I could share on the screen that's very brief, but Sacre members might find it useful to just tell you what Ofsted inspections look at now. Sarah, I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, well, basically, the old system was that schools got a one-word description statement, which obviously was in a lot of the news at the moment, previously. So the old framework was you were literally outstanding, good, requires improvement, or inadequate. And what they did was they looked at 4 overwhelming areas, okay, quality of education, behaviour and attitudes, personal development, leadership and management. And they came in for 2 days, unless you'd got a requires improvement, when you could get a 5-day one, and they would visit several times during the year, and you'd get a one-word basic description about. All schools hoped for at least a good. If you got a requires improvement, that meant that they were going to come back again, usually within 12 months, and they would be visiting several times during the year to see what you were doing to improve and all of that. So when the inspectors came for us in January, it was the same old routine as that. We got the phone call on Monday morning, which was a bit of a shock to us because our head teacher was at the time signed off sick, having had a knee operation. She was told it wouldn't be postponed and they would be in on Tuesday and Wednesday. So she had to actually get a taxi to school. So that really tells you, where the inspectors are coming from. What they then do is they then spend the first day going around everywhere doing observations. Now, in the old days, they used to meet heads of department and do what we called a deep dive. Now, essentially, what they do is they meet the SLT and they do a deep dive on them for all the different subjects. What happens is, instead of the 4 areas, you can see at the bottom, if you scroll down, Emily, to the new one, you've got all particular areas, and you now have a 5 basic descriptors come out, and that will be for each and every part of the areas identified. So instead of getting one overall description for everything all piled in together, you could get, for instance, exceptional for inclusion, curriculum and teaching could be expected standard, achievement could be needs attention. So you get what is like what they call a postcard. And if you get a needs attention for any of those areas, then they will come back in 12 months. And basically, speaking to my head teacher, she said it's the hardest thing she's had to go through in the over 30 years she's been in education, and she wouldn't wish it on her worst enemy. Okay, so it's very tough. They're around everywhere. They interview the students, they interview different panels, they look at the students' books, they walk into lots of different lessons. I had 2 inspectors, one come to an RE lesson, one come to my tutor period. There's double checking for consistency. So in the tutor lesson, they came to 3 different tutor groups at the same time to check we were all doing the things consistently. One of the assistant head teachers was interviewed about the delivery of RE across the curriculum, and I'd got the SLT and all the heads of departments to do a basic audit of where RE was identified in delivery in different subject matter, and that basically helped out an awful lot. But they look at everything, and then the day 2 they come back to pick up on any gaps, things they haven't seen, areas that maybe had weaknesses on. They want you to prove to them why you should be getting, say, a expected standard or higher. It's really tough. It's really stressful. I think in particular for the SLT, but all the teachers are fully aware of what it means, that if you get a needs attention on anything, then you're going to have Ofsted coming back within the next 12 months to focus on that particular area, one or more. Hope that tells you it's not fun. Is that okay?
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if Ian wanted to add.
Thanks for that, Sarah. In terms of the framework that Sarah put up there, RE specifically mentioned in terms of the personal development statement. It does say that pupils can actively talk about their own belief and the belief of other people that they may encounter, whether they are religious or not. There's a statement on page 21 of the toolkit, I really am that sad sometimes, which talks about subjects making sure that disciplinary knowledge is available in all the subject areas as well. So that's in the Working Agreed syllabus around the ideas of the ways of knowing. So even though it doesn't mention RE, that's across all subject areas. As I say, there's also the mention of, within the curriculum section, that the school has a statutory curriculum that contains RE. And as Sarah was saying, inspectors will go in assuming the school is expected standard, and they will look for something to move it above or below that standard now, so that's why it happens in that case. And we go back to the mention of CPD, but in the leadership and governance section, there's a section that says the school is providing adequate professional learning, it's a new phrase for CPD, for teachers to deliver their subject areas, so that's also being inspected. That's why, Sarah, there's that big focus on the SLT, that they are ensuring that those teachers who will be teaching whichever subject, including non-specialists, are prepared to teach it. But there is the expectation that they will go in and they'll be in a school that is expected standard, and they will look for moving up or moving down. The only one that doesn't do that one is safeguarding, which either you meet or you don't meet. That's it.
Yeah, I've written that on the sheet. Yeah, you either meet or you don't meet. And if that's the case, you're going to have everybody coming in, because that is so important for everybody concerned.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sarah. Any questions, any comments from people? No, okay. Emily, the final annual report, if you could just flip that up onto the screen and show us.
On page 47 of the agenda pack, you've got, we shared the draft annual report previously, and you'll know that when we submit it to Sacre and the DFE, we have to follow a particular format, which is quite dry. So what we always do every year is edit it slightly and format it in a more user-friendly and appealing way to share with schools. So that's what you've got at the back of the pack. It's exactly the same as the draft version we've shared before, except that the A-level results are now available. So previously it didn't include A-level results, and now it does. So on page 49, you have the A-level results from last summer, and I've just written a little bit underneath the results, and what that essentially says is the Wokingham results are strong when you compare them to national. So much higher than national in Wokingham. The only thing that might be a slight concern is that we had fewer students entered this year than last year. Only 3 fewer, so 34 A-level students in 2025 compared to 37 the year before. But that number has been steadily declining. So it was 3.4% of Wokingham students were entered compared to 4.6% nationally. So it's not a significant difference from national, but there has been a slight decline in the number of students entered.
Is that consistent over the years?
So what you can see in the brackets, Shira, at the bottom of the box is the number of students that have been entered in previous years. So last year was 37, the year before that was 46. Then there was a dip when it was 32. And then going back to 2019, there were 48 students entered. So it has varied a bit over the years. Yeah.
Alison.
Could I just ask, in your introduction and the final paragraph, we've been looking for a Buddhist member for a while, but we're now searching for Hindu and Roman Catholic representatives as well. Should it not include seeking a Sikh representative?
Well, you have to, yeah, it should do current, no, we are currently seeking a Sikh member, you're right, Alison, but at the time, the period that this report covers, we had a Sikh member. Yeah. So it's kind of retrospective. This is the report for the academic year that ended last July. So,
but if you're talking about, okay, but if it's something you're publishing to people, to parents,
yeah, I get your point.
It seems like a very lost opportunity
yeah,
to reach out.
Yeah,
just
I
for the sake
your
of
point. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sam, member presentation on the Spirited Arts competition.
Let me just, yes, let me just.
Help. So I've sent Emily a PowerPoint that's got some pictures on. Hopefully it will work. It's quite photo heavy because I wanted to show you what it looks like in school. So to give you some context, I actually changed the front slide today. I had 5 minutes to quickly change this because I was asked to do this in 2023. So the pictures that are in it are actually got my daughter in who's now in year 8. But it's the same premise, and the idea was to talk you through kind of what Spirited Arts looks like in school. So the Spirited Arts competition, I'm going to teach you to suck eggs. I'm just assuming people don't know too much about it. I think that's the best way to do it. The Spirited Arts competition has been going for years and years and years and years, and we've done it in quite a few different schools. And they'll give you some questions, some content that you can then let the children work with, and you can enter a national competition for. We do it at this school, and I've done it in other schools before because it literally brings us joy. It is aside from our normal RE lessons. It's a way of joining up their ideas and letting them have some space in the curriculum to represent their own ideas, whether they are spiritual or not spiritual, or whether they're their own religious views or stories that they know. So yeah, it brings us absolute joy. So this is just a presentation showing you what happened in 2003 and then some subsequent years of what it looks like in my school when I'm planning it. So if we go to the first slide. So the very first thing is you go to the website and you get 6 themes. I don't need to read this all out. This looks like on the website. So you get a theme and it gives you a question and it gives you some ideas for things that you could be looking at, and it leads you towards looking for some religious content as well. It's not just, green faith, green future. Okay, everybody, draw a nice picture of the world. It's saying to you, right, think about this, engage with this information. So the first thing we do is choose a theme. So the second slide. And now I'm going to say a little bit more in light of the conversations that we've had tonight about preparing and planning it. I actually am an RE specialist because my degree is an RE. So I'm a bit unusual in the primary school. So the preparation is quite key for this, and we found this to be important. I will run normally maybe 2 staff meetings, twilight staff meetings on the theme. And we'll read out the theme. And for preparation for teachers in red there, we'll have an initial staff meeting to come up with some ideas. We'll have a resources trail around. I'll get everything out of the RE cupboard and go, you could do this, 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 and this, and point people in different directions. In this one, particularly in 2023, we had our school eco lead in input because it was what we're doing in school as well, because it was about climate change and green earth. And then we plan in our year groups. So we all say, right, what do you do? What's really fascinating about this? And at different times in the school, we've done it different ways. So sometimes one year we specified and we gave the content to be what that year group had been learning over that year primarily. And that year, it was Hinduism in year 3, it was Judaism in year 4, Sikhism in 5, and Islam in 6, just to give more support with that kind of planning. So we do that for one staff meeting. Everyone goes away. We leave it percolating for a couple of weeks. Then I'll do another staff meeting where the teachers will share what their initial plan is. So we were thinking some of this content, because children can't start with nothing. You need to have the content. Exactly as Fid was talking earlier, you need to have got on the websites, researched different things, found a fantastic story that matches that you might want to use with your children, because again, year 3 and year 6 are quite different. So then in terms of preparation for the children, there's always an introduction assembly. So I'll do an assembly about this year's theme. And this is where I say it brings us joy. They ask me constantly, when's spirited arts? We're doing spirited arts. When's spirited arts? Is it this week? Is it this week? Or they'll come up to you and ask you loads and loads of questions. So for the introduction assembly for this 2023 one, we were looking at the Pope's. Pope had a nice little video about the way that we were treating the world, and then we look at some other faiths. And then we introduce it to children to give them time to think about it. Then we explore it in our classes. We have discussions, initial ideas, what do you fancy? And then the teachers will say, well, we found this content. We'll have a little chat about that. Then there's an RE week timetable that's given, and then something called the showcase, which I'll prepare, because at the end of the week, they will prepare and show their work. So all of step 1 and step 2 happens before a standalone RE week for spirited arts. So if you carry on then, Emily, the actual week then looks like that. So it would be the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be the content that you wanted to provide. So in this one, they were doing a Wonder About the Earth poem, because this was creation, this is a year 6. They were doing some games, you can see them in some games there. They were talking about all the main themes. They might be looking at different things to do with different religions and religious responses to it. In another year, we did one about, it was an anti-racist kind of thing. It was faith in different people, and we were looking at equality, and then we looked at, there were lots of PowerPoints and lots of input about, you know, this is some input from Christianity, this is some input from Islam, this is from la 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 la. So the kids have some knowledge, because they can't produce any kind of artwork without any kind of knowledge. And of course, some of the children are sucking some bits up, and some people are interested in other things, and they're having discussions and coming up with their ideas, again, percolating what they're going to do. So there's input that goes in. And then the next step, all that input we put into scrapbooks for the class. So as they're going along, they'll put their work into these scrapbooks as they're going along, because that's the religious content that we're doing. Okay, if you skip again. So then that's it, they're loose. They might be working in 2s, 1s, 4s, whole classes, and they've got an idea about how they want to represent their interpretation of it, or how they want to represent a particular view. In this one particularly, it was, again, creation, the little stone there. We talked about the 10 Commandments, and about if you're really going to do something, you have to, you know, write it in stone, so it's irreversible. So the children were making these pledges on stones, you know, so it was absolutely irreversible. So, so then they have, however long that they need, it might be 1 or 2 days, to work on and discuss all the way through how they're going to do it, what they're going to change, what that bit represents. And there's lots of starter questions and lots of prompts that we use, because alongside their artwork, they have to, in the competition, write down what their work represents. So they have to know, like where they're doing that Lego piece at the back there, I've put that there because this represents this for me. This is really, really important. So then they've produced this piece of artwork, or dance or whatever. And so on the last day of that week, there's a final showcase. That's me looking down the playground. They basically literally set out their stalls. So they have all their tables are outside, they set up their artwork. Next to their artwork, they have the piece that they've written that explains it. And then we split the school into A and B, and half of them will present their work, and the other half will go around and literally ask every question they can possibly think of about it. So they'll explore it, they'll question it, explain it, reflect it, they're asking little questions about it, and they also have, and that's them all walking around having a look at different people's, they also have to articulate themselves what they were thinking and the symbolism behind all the things that they've done. If you just flick on, we also had like a little grid that they did in little groups, reflecting what you've seen. So the piece of artwork that I really liked is this. This was my favourite part of it. I asked this question, because effectively what happens when they go round is they are choosing, because you can only send 10 of the best pieces, they are deciding what they think is the best piece of work that they've seen. Hilariously that year, so many children wrote down my daughter because I think they thought it was going to give them some kudos with me. And I was like, nope. But then between us all and the teachers as well, we then choose our final 10. And then if you flick on again, that year, these are the things that they had submitted. So it can be sculptures, it can be paintings, whatever. And then you can see their little spiel at the side. So Emily, we can't read that. And I just wanted to show the little spiel, which connects to what they were thinking and the quote that they had for that, or what really inspired them that week. So if you just show us a few of those. This one was a Heal the World. This girl had written her own poem to go alongside it as well. And then what's really fascinating, that was a whole year group collaboration. And this one was about the world in his hands. And then what's fascinating is just this one. It was Father God. But what's fascinating is there were tiny details on that you just wouldn't have seen, and they wrote in their explanation. You can't see it brilliantly well from here, but on the legs there is a bee, and there's a good side and a bad side. And it was when Prime came out, you know, the drink that all the children had to have Prime. And on one side there was this Prime that was the things that we don't really need in the world. And then they'd obviously really been inspired by lots of different things. And one of them was like, if we don't have the bees, we don't have a world. So they wanted bees on it because they'd been inspired, you know, in the scientific, you know, the whole pollination process. So you wouldn't necessarily see that or pick that up immediately, but that was really key and important to them, and that goes in their write-up. I've chosen this because this is really important to me. This is what we need to do next. So that was that particular, that's what they did. And then if you just flick to the next one. So that first one was about the climate. The second year was faith in humanity, no to racism, yes to respect. At the bottom there, there's quotes from all different religions. It was all about the golden rule and them deciding what the absolute golden rule is to be able to respect people. The one that's the lady with the globe face, it was about knitting with the golden rule, golden threads, what we all needed. And so each of the golden threads had things written on it, and the whole of the jumper was made up of the world's flags, again, a children's perspective. The top one was about God holding you in the palm of their hand. They really liked the prayer, and so they were thinking about that. And then the one in the middle, which is a dream catcher, and they'd be really inspired. They chose a dream catcher because of the I Had a Dream speech, were little quotes of the Bible. And that one actually won that year. That's the first time we've had somebody that wins. So that was fantastic. And then last year, it was stories that change as lives, and you can see some drama work working towards it. We had lots of Good Samaritans, lots of Noah's Ark, and this other one here, each of the steps, it was kind of like a step to nirvana. Each of these steps to heaven were different books, and you would step and you would learn different things on the way that the children had written. But the impact on the children for us is huge. The children's ideas, their voice just shines through. The enthusiasm is huge. The chance to raise the profile of RE is huge, and they absolutely love it, and they bring so much to the table when they actually do it. The other thing, even academically, is we realised what they don't know, and that content and planning part is really, really important. We're a Church of England junior school, not a primary school, so actually when we did the Stories That Changed Lives last year, we actually realised that we had some holes in religious knowledge of stories. So we've changed inputted that into our curriculum this year to make sure, and our collective worship the same, that we've covered a wider base of stories, because I can't tell you how many Good Samaritans there were. You know, that was just the story that they knew. So that's a learning tool for us as well. But we do it every single year. We do it for a week. The planning goes on before, but it is an absolute joy, and I feel it's the children really run the school that week in terms of the teaching and in terms of what you hear them say when you walk around and they're presenting. You know, they're looking at you like you asked a really stupid question. Well, that's obvious. It's because of this, and this. And the confidence and the knowledge that shines through is second to none. So that's Spirited Arts at our school.
Is it just your school does it, or other schools also? Because it's a fantastic
No,
idea.
it's a national competition, and it's been going for how long? It's been years. I did it at St. John. I've been a teacher for 26 years, so it's been a while.
This is its 23rd year this year. We have 25,000 entries every year. And we think that's only 10 entries per school.
Yeah.
So,
and what's fantastic about it in terms of resource as well is you can see on the website all of some of the previous winners, and you can use those again in the preparation to go, this, I don't do it for my own theme, because children are very quick to mimic rather than think for themselves, is we'll look and we say, look how they represented that, what do you want to do, how do you want to do it? We have raps and videos and digital things as well, you know, all sorts of things.
Quite really like the stories that change the lives, right? Because stories are a fantastic way to actually, because human mind is wired to listen to stories, and historically, if you think about it, the best way to get across your message is actually tell a story, right? And especially children, they love stories, right? So that's quite really a nice way to do it. But other part is reflection as well. What have you learned from this, whatever it might be, story or whatever, and how can that be applied in their own lives, etc. So yeah, really, I didn't know that. So I learned something.
Question. So it's basically it's primarily RE and arts, but do the children do other subjects during the week, or do you bring in like science, and how do you get the other teachers, the other subjects involved? How does that?
It's an off timetable week, but you can bring it into. It's depending on their interest, they can bring all sorts in. So we have done it through dance before, our spirited arts, and through poetry. It depends, yeah, and it depends how they kind of follow it through. And again, when we were looking at that one, there was quite a lot of history when we were looking at we were looking at different religious responses to racism. We started with, there was some work on the Natro website that just gave us some ideas of where to start as well with the slavery and the toppling. It was the Bristol people, wasn't it? It's been such a long night. Yes, so it started there, and that was some quite interesting stuff. So you're drawing quite a lot into it, and the children will just go off and find their own stuff too, you know. So it doesn't need to be everything from that you've missed that week, because we go off timetable for that week.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. We were talking about concerns about the quality of education and stuff, or teaching earlier. I think when we look at the exam results that are shown in the annual report, and also when you see the quality of output that was just displayed to us there, it looks to me like there's an awful lot going very well in our schools. And I was amazed at the quality and the thought that's gone into that stuff. Really incredible. So well done to everybody involved in all the schools that's doing stuff like that, because that's amazing.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, Emily, if you'd now like to cover the last couple of items, which is how are things in Wokingham schools, and also give the briefing on the racial equity support for Wokingham schools.
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, what I thought I'd do is I will talk about the racial equity work, but just very briefly, I wanted to widen out the context a bit and talk about the context for that racial equity work, which is really a focus on belonging in our schools that I thought people might find useful to hear about. The first thing to say is that Wokingham Borough Council is now what's called a Marmot Borough, which I will not go into detail now but essentially what it means is making sure that everyone in the borough, or doing our best to make sure, that everyone in the borough is able to lead a fulfilled life. So looking at what causes poor health particularly, and looking at that really broadly, including things like racism and discrimination, which impact on people's well-being, of course. So that's the context for the whole borough. We also have a new Wokingham Borough Council Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Policy, which is very high profile. It gets talked about a lot. There was a lot of consultation with the whole community across the borough that went into writing that. When we're talking about support for schools, in terms of belonging, there's a lot of work we do with our schools to support them, to help every child to belong in our schools. So we support schools in their work with disadvantaged children, in their work to support children's mental health and well-being, with managing children's behaviour in a trauma-informed way. supporting schools in their work with children with special educational needs and who are neurodiverse, including as well on racial equity. And we've had a couple of head teacher conferences now over the last 2 years that have focused on equity and belonging. And we're trying to have regular head teacher presentations. We have a meeting with head teachers once a month online, and we're trying to have at every meeting at least one head teacher presenting something that's to do with belonging in their school. There is a national focus on belonging in school. So you may have heard the Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson, talking about belonging, and I'll share a quote from her in a moment. We've been talking a lot about the curriculum and assessment review, and that has included, the review has recommended that the new curriculum reflects diversity more than the current curriculum does, and the government have said they agree with that every child should be able to see themselves and their community reflected in the curriculum. We've also mentioned the new Ofsted inspection toolkit, which has a much stronger focus on inclusion and belonging. And when we're talking about inclusion, it's not only children with special educational needs that Ofsted is talking about. It's children from disadvantaged backgrounds, children who are known to social care, and they also talk about any other child who's experiencing a barrier to learning or well-being. And they say that that could include children with a protected characteristic, which would obviously relate to race and religion and belief. And we know that there's a schools white paper coming this term. We keep hearing it's coming soon. That's going to talk about special educational needs and many other things to do with education as well. So the Secretary of State has talked about things. This is taken from a speech she gave in October, where she asked how many young people today truly feel they're part of something that looks out for them, which they can contribute to which they can belong. And she says, I fear that not enough of our young people feel that way about school. And obviously we see that in poor attendance, in some cases in poor behaviour, and many other different ways in which it plays out in school. The Ofsted Chief Inspector, Sir Martin Oliver, has also talked a lot about belonging and inclusion. And he says, when I talk about inclusion, I mean it in the widest possible sense. What we're really talking about is belonging, and do all children feel they belong? And making sure we remove any barriers to belonging. And then Ofsted, they look at, we obviously know they look at academic achievement, but they've got another 2 bullet points in their new toolkit that they look at. The second one being belonging. Do children feel they're really valued and part of the school community? And are they able to thrive? So are they kept safe and able to flourish, whatever their background or needs? So there really is a national focus on belonging in schools. So that's, and we're doing a lot, as I say, in Wokingham on belonging. So that's the context for our racial equity work. So we've been supporting schools with racial equity for 6 years now, and we offer a programme of training and support for schools. And unfortunately, we know that the current context in this country and across the world means that the world and the country are probably more divided than they've been for a long time. And there's a lack of tolerance and respect. And so this work on racial equity is even more needed, perhaps, than it has been. So when we started this work 6 years ago, we thought we need to be very clear about what we want to achieve. And we came up with some very long-term and ambitious aims. They're partly around learning and making sure, essentially, that young people in our schools and school staff know what it means to be anti-racist. We have curriculums that are fully inclusive. Children and school staff understand the history, the multiracial history that we have in Britain, and they understand the way that racism works and the history related to racism. And then we've got some some objectives around outcomes, so around academic achievement and all our children from all ethnic groups achieving well, all racial groups not receiving any more sanctions for poor behaviour or exclusions than other groups, and for everyone to feel comfortable and happy in our schools. And then finally, we want to achieve a workforce, a teaching workforce that is racially diverse. So children have role models of staff in schools who are ethnically diverse, and we also have school leaders and school governors who are diverse as well. So we've provided a range of training courses to schools on lots of different aspects of racial equity. So, for example, looking about the curriculum, looking at developing children's racial literacy, a lot of training for school staff, helping schools deal with incidents relating to race, recruiting more diverse staff. And we've had really good response from schools. Not every school in Wokingham is engaged with this work, but we had a conference in November which Philip and his colleague came to, and we had, I think, 18 schools represented at that conference. So I'd say we've got at least 18 schools that are really committed to this work and doing really good work on it. And it was interesting that at the end of the conference, we asked teachers in their feedback that they gave us to tell us what they plan to do as a result of the conference. And this is just a selection of some things teachers said they would do. So look at representation in their curriculum, think about how they're responding to racist incidents in a trauma-informed way, looking at scenarios in staff meetings. So we talked about some situations involving racism in schools and how could we respond to those. And they were going to have those discussions at school with their colleagues. And making sure there is belonging in all their policies, practice and procedures. And this is just a flavour of some of the things that are happening in schools. Some of the things that teachers have told us that they're doing. So you can see there's staff looking into decolonising the curriculum, thinking about the resources they've got for children in school, reviewing their trips and workshops to ensure that people meet diverse experts. So that's just a very quick flavour of the work that's happening in schools. I hope that was useful. Thanks, Nigel.
Shira.
So you have training for teachers?
Yes.
Who does that training?
A mixture of different people. So our conference, we had 2 keynote speakers. We had a head teacher, a secondary head teacher called Evelyn Ford, and we had an ex-primary school teacher who's now an academic called Darren Chetty. Our previous conference, we used a speaker called Aisha Thomas, who's recently published a book. We have used Amjad Ali, who's a local senior leader and consultant. We have used Risk in Reading. We have used Race Matters. And myself and my colleague Majid in my team do some of the training. So
You're aware that Risk in Reading has a history of being involved with anti-Semites, and maybe they should not be used?
No, I'm not aware of that, Shira, but maybe that's something we can discuss outside the meeting.
Okay, Beth?
I wondered if it'd be possible, Emily, to have a copy of that.
Yes, sure.
Please, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more comments, we can move on to any other business. One thing, thank you very much, Sam, for your presentation on almost collective worship, but the things that are happening in schools, and I'm really keen to see some of this feedback coming to Sacre, but also individual members talking about their faith, their worldview as well. So if I could have a volunteer for our next meeting on the 8th of June to speak about faith and worldview, or what's happening in schools, that would be really appreciated. Otherwise, you'll get me talking about what it means to be a Baptist, and nobody wants that. All right, but I'm really keen that, you know, we learn from each other and are enthused by each other when we meet together, and I think that would be really useful. I think the only other business is data next meeting. Emily?
Oh, do you want to go first?
Shahid.
Okay, so this is really for Beth, who I'm very disappointed is not with us in person today, because Beth, we're very, very late with this, but we do know that you celebrated a very significant birthday a while ago, and so everyone has signed a card for you, which I will have to put in the post to you. But belated happy 80th birthday to you, Beth. And we're sorry
Thank you
it's so late.
so much. And I think I've been on the Sacre since about 1996. I think Methuselah was the chairman.
Beth, will we be at a meeting together tomorrow?
We should be, Alison,
Yes, so I'll bring the card then.
Yes.
So Beth, you're still teaching? No,
Sorry?
retired. Okay. Oh,
Okay. Dates of next meeting?
Oh, Shahid.
Shahid.
Ian mentioned Ramadan is coming next week. Every year, what we do is actually invite people from diverse ethnic background, people from politics, from civic community, also from different faith groups as well, to come and open the fast with us. It's been going on for the last 12 years. So this time it will be at the Reading Football Club. So I was going to extend the invitation. The date is 27th of February at 4:45. But the opening of the sunset is about 5:45, right? So what I was going to do was actually, I thought I'm here, use this opportunity to openly invite everyone, but I'll send the invite formally by email. So you got all the details. So everybody's welcome, please. If you want to bring your friend as well, by all means, but do let me know so I can arrange the, for catering purposes, right?
Okay, dates of next meeting? I think 8th of June is the next meeting, but we need to set autumn and spring 27 dates.
So autumn, we normally meet, I think, early November, don't we? Yeah. Is it possible to set dates now, Luciani, or is it better to email people out? Sorry.
This was, I think the date is probably gone already in the council meeting calendar. I can have a quick look, or I can email you.
Yeah.
Maybe we should check whether there are any dates of religious festivals, or we can send draft dates out to people, can't we? And then people can let us know. Yeah.
It'll take me a couple of minutes to find it now.
We can do it after the meeting by email, can't we? If that's okay.
Okay, well, in that case, thank you very much. I know it's been a long meeting tonight, but I think it's been an enjoyable meeting. I hope Ramesh, you've learned something, and we haven't put you off coming and joining us and being part of this conversation about the world. So thank you very much, everyone who's come.
Good night, everyone.
Night, Beth.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.